Welcome to Brands Hatch. It's round 2 of the Bennetts British Superbike Championship. Ahead of the weekend we caught up with some of the riders and also Ollie Rushby from MCN, Chris from Bike Social, to just, I suppose, have a bit of a review on the first round of the season at Donington, given the hectic nature of it, some surprises. BSB never fails to deliver in terms of what comes next and to expect the unexpected, as we always say. I suppose we should start off really with the biggest sort of person that impressed us that weekend. It's fair to say that Bradley Rae stole the show at Donington Park, isn't it? Absolutely.
A stunning double victory for the 20-year-old. I'd say it's a shock victory as well. It was never in question that Brad Rae was going to win a race this year. But I think even he was shocked that it came at the very first round. It'd been a 10th off a race victory at Ellison Park last year behind Dan Linfoot and Leon Haslam, so we knew he had it in him, and the team had made quite a lot of improvements with the bike over winter. But to roll out at round 1 and take not just one win but 2 wins in very mixed conditions makes a huge statement.
And speaking to him after the race, he did say that it proves that the race 1 performance wasn't just a fluke, because the conditions did change so much during the weekend, and that did make it difficult for everyone, didn't it?
Yeah, massively. I mean, we've caught up with him today as well, and he's in buoyant form after what was a great weekend at Donington, and yeah, I can only see that continuing as well. He's, like you say, he seemed confident in all conditions. The bike seems to be really, suiting him this season, and albeit they didn't have the best testing previously before the season started, but it doesn't seem to be affecting them. They seem to be coming out really strong, and he'll go well this weekend at Brands Hatch.
We actually caught up with Brad earlier on today, and here's his thoughts on the second round of the season.
Brad, just talk us through Donington. It was a bit of a whirlwind weekend for you.
Yeah, to be fair, it was a weekend I'm obviously never going to forget, but a weekend that surprised me, to be honest. Going into round 1, you never expect to, from my side, to obviously win a race that early on, and then to make it double on the Monday was something very special. But yeah, going into weekend, obviously with the pre-season testing, we was quite under the radar. We didn't do obviously the Cartagena test, but we went out there in January and done that instead. But we also done a few at Mallory, a few tests where we was testing new bits from Yoshimura and from Suzuki. So yeah, we went into the season quite confident, but obviously not as confident obviously to win a race. That wasn't sort of on my mind. I was out there to maybe get a few top 6s and just start the season off in a good way. But yeah, to go out of Donington with a double win and leading the championship was quite an eye opener.
Now at Brands Hatch, the Indy circuit, you tested here not that long ago. Are you feeling confident?
Yeah. I mean, Brands Indy was quite good for us last year. Second round in, and I got a 12th and an 8th. So we went well last year. We done a test a few weeks before Donington. Again, trying new parts from Suzuki and from Yoshimura. So the confidence is definitely high for here, but it's one of them tracks where it's going to be a difficult one. It's a 45 second lap, so qualifying's extremely vital, and I mean you've got to be on the first 2 rows to be anywhere in the race sort of thing. So if we can come out of here with 2 consistent finishes, 2 good point scoring finishes, then yeah, I'll be happy with that for sure.
I think Brad will go really well here at Brands Hatch. He and teammate Richard Cooper tested here the week before Donington Park, so relatively recently. So they might have a little bit of an edge on other people. So don't be surprised to see them quicker, especially in the early free practice sessions.
And the Indy circuit, everybody says 1.2 mile is such a fast lap round here. Every 10th makes such a big difference, and we've seen that in the past where someone can be, at the top of the timesheets to down in 13th quite quickly. We saw some of those similar kind of things at Donington, with perhaps Josh Brooks not being where we expected, Christian Idden not being where we expected. What was your biggest surprises and disappointments of the first round?
I mean, for me, Christian, I was more gutted for him than anything. He had a big crash at Craner's in free practice, and that almost wrecked his weekend. The team done a great effort even to get the bike back on the grid for the Sunday race, and yeah, he'll be disappointed with that. But he bagged some points. He got some points in the bag, and he'll build on that this weekend. And yeah, he'll do well around here. And I think for me also as well, you touched on Brooks. He'll be disappointed that he didn't stamp his authority on the championship straight away, and last year there he was really, I think he walked away with a podium, maybe even 2, and he'll be disappointed, but he'll come back fighting, I think.
Yeah, Josh was I think he finished second in the first race at Donington last year, so he will be really, really gutted not to have even broken into the top 10 in the first round this year. He came into the year a clear championship favourite. He finished second last year on a small, privately run team with that's literally run by Rob Winfield and his wife. And his sons. So to move into what's the factory-supported McCann's team, you would expect he's got an advantage. But for whatever reason, it just didn't work at Donington for them. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next few rounds whether that kind of works out. In terms of who else was impressive at Donington, I think you've got to say Danny Buchan, 4th in that second race. As a rider that comes under a lot of fire for not being able to ride a superbike. He's never really been able to conquer a challenge in the superbike class in recent years.
And the different conditions also gave us some really close races in terms of the teams. We saw only Brad appear on the podium twice with build-based Suzuki. The rest of the podiums, Kawasaki, Honda. We touched on Anvil, Hayatag, Yamaha. Did you expect to see Ellison straight up there at the sharp end? Because they had a different testing programme too to everyone else pre-season, with a few track days here and there, by comparison to some of the teams that had spent a long time out in Spain. Did he surprise you with his performance?
Well, I don't want to brag, but Ellison was in my top 6 at the start of the season. So yeah, it was great to see him do well and be at the sharp end from race 1. He'll be disappointed in race 2 that he had a crash at the Melbourne Loop, but what a confidence booster that's going to be. Albeit he's moved to a similar bike at Tag Racing, but there was always that bit of an unknown how to suit it and whether he would be quick out the blocks, and he's proven that. And this weekend we're at Brands Hatch, his stomping ground almost last year, bar the DNF and a few issues in the race. But I think hopefully he can build on the podium he had at Donington this weekend, and yeah, he'll be up there this weekend.
And Ellison, current lap record holder of the Indy circuit, topped all of the free practice sessions here last year, had that crash in the first race at Druids that then hampered the rest of his weekend. He is confident coming into this weekend, but do you consider him to be one of the favourites, aside from perhaps Mossy, given his performance here last year?
I'd say Ellison will want to be up there this weekend. He's always been good here. He holds the race lap record from 2015 with the JG Speedfit Kawasaki team. He got the outright lap record from his pole position last year. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to turn that practice pace into results with the crash at Druids, running him out of race 1. And then during the repair process, they noticed that the frame was bent, but a little bit too late. It wasn't until they noticed it on the grid for the second race, so he also missed the second race. So it was kind of robbed from Ellison last year, but it would have been good to see him go up against Luke Mossy, who again has always had a really good showing here at Brands Hatch Indy circuit. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do on the JG Speedfit Kawasaki, because he kind of got his mojo back at Donington and was fighting at the front again.
And another sort of example of how it can turn around so quickly during a weekend, we've got to touch on Glenn Irwin and what happened to him at Donington, given how he went from, almost ruled out for, originally thinking he might not be able to ride, miss a few rounds, to then being back in the top 10. How impressive was that?
Yeah, I mean, we were in the media centre, and it happened at the last corner at Donington Park, so we saw it all unravel in front of us. And yeah, we all thought the worst. He was in the back of an ambulance, and he tweeted saying he'd broke his neck, and it was such a shame because Glenn, coming into the season, he's even said it, fitter and stronger than he's ever been, really confident. Another year on the bike, he was really gunning for it, and to have that, that shock that he might not be able to race that weekend and the rest of the season was awful. But he come back the next day, raced, he got 6th and a 7th, and he'll be so happy with that, because from 0 to hero almost, to walk away from Donington with points in the bag at a track that him and the team said wasn't their best round, he'll be buoyant about that.
I think with Glenn, it's worth noting that he is a very different person this year. He's got a very different mantra about him, and I was gutted for him when he crashed out in that practice session, because he probably didn't do anything wrong. The conditions were absolutely terrible, but and they are quite punishing in those circumstances. He came down hard, thought he'd done some damage. All of a sudden he hadn't done some damage, and he was back, and it clearly wasn't too bad, because he got 2 solid top 7 results.
We caught up with Glenn ahead of the 2 races at Brands Hatch this Sunday.
So Glenn, Donington Park, it was quite eventful for you in the end. Are you like to just run us through how you saw it and how eventually it turned out to be not the worst weekend?
Yeah, going into it, I obviously came off probably my strongest pre-season yet. You know, I've always been like a second in arrears of shaky and whatnot and testing, and you know, come race pace, we've always been quite close, particularly in the second half of the race. But I arrived in Donington feeling really confident, and not that I still don't feel confident, because I feel every bit as confident, if not more now. But I had quite a slow crash at Goddard's and landed heavy on my back and neck, and it turned out I had a broken C5 from Knockhill. Yeah, well, you know, I was told I wouldn't ride a bike for a few months and whatnot, and then we caught on that the injury was old. And don't get me wrong, at that point I was still thinking, can I ride? Because I couldn't even, you know, we talked about touching our toes off, or fingers off our toes when we're stretching our legs and whatnot. I couldn't even get near my thighs. So yeah, but I managed to ride. It didn't hinder me on track whatsoever. So there's I'm not saying I would have been any better without, you know, injuring my back or my neck. But what it did do, the conditions were so cold, and I didn't want to land heavy again. I also didn't want to throw another broken bike. Now my bike was pretty fine anyway, but I didn't want to return another crash to the team, and to come away with a 6-7 scorecard on what I believe was the conditions that hampered the Ducati more than anything, due to the nature of we don't really stress our tyres a lot. Front end more by weight distribution and rear end by throttle. So me and Shicky really struggled to keep heating the front tyre, and I think we've both done a really, really good job, all things considered.
And then this weekend, the weather's looking a lot better than Donington. What's your hopes? Are you hoping to get some good solid bags?
Yeah, I want to come away with trophies. You know, I want to start winning races. I want to beat my teammate, but if you're in this grid and you didn't want to do that, there'd be no point being here. Obviously, you have to be realistic. Now I believe I can do that, and that's what I intend to do. It's not going to be easy. It's super tough, but we were strong here last year. It did take us most of the weekend from both sides of the garage to find something that worked, but we managed it. I crashed out of race 2 and Shane followed me the lap after, but at the time I was catching Leon and Luke hand over fist, and Luke went on to win the race. So looking back, my weakness was the beginning of the races, mainly due to qualifying position, but I feel that's something that I've rectified, and if we go out on Saturday and put the PBM Ducati on the front 2 rows, our race pace on Sunday I think is a match for anyone.
And then on the opposite side of the garage, Shaky had a much better start by comparison to last year, given that he didn't start the races last year. So he seemed quite happy that a podium was more than what he had, because last year he had an awful first 2 rounds by his standards, and he crashed here on the Indy circuit as well. Do you think we should expect to see more from him this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the first race on Donington Park, I was down in the pit lane as he come in from the race, and he'd done a burnout through the pit box, and he was just in such a good mood, because he knew how bad last year was, and to come out of that round, even with the podium, I think it was he had a pretty solid result in the second race as well, and he'll be coming to Brands Hatch. He's regarded as the king of Brands, and he'll be ready to sort of stamp his authority back on the championship. There's a lot of young guns being talked about pre-season, and Brad's obviously shown that they're going to be biting at his heels this year, and he's going to come to Brands determined to come away with another solid two results and get them in the bag.
Honda Racing seemed to be much more confident going into the weekend. Dan was on the podium at the first round. Jason had that problem in the second race that then dropped him down. First race, second race? With a gear lever?
First race, he took the front coming into Hollywood and saved it on his knee, but he lost his gear lever, so he was stuck in 4th gear for the remainder of the final lap. So he dropped from, I think, the battle for 4th with teammate Dan Linfoot back to 7th place.
And I think it's interesting to see as well how equally the Hondas are matched in terms of the teammates as well. They were battling against each other. Who would you put as the one of the two to come out top this weekend?
Oh, they put me on the spot there.
I'll go Linfoot.
Yeah, Linfoot.
O'Halloran actually disappointed me a little bit at Donington. He was there fighting with Dan in the first race for that 4th position, but in the second race he was absolutely nowhere in wet conditions, and that's a little bit unusual for Jason, because Jason is Mr. Consistency. We saw in 2016 that a load of consistent results, a string of consistent results, saw him actually in a position where in the mid-season it looked like he could fight with Hassan and Shaky for the championship. So for him not to get that great of a start to the season was a little bit of a surprise. Linfoot, absolutely mega weekend for him, 3rd and 4th. If you rewind back 12 months, neither of the Honda riders were in the top 10 and they were struggling to get points with that Fireblade. So that just shows how far they've come with the bike. And they should be in for another good weekend here at Brands Indy, but like you say, it's the top 15 here are covered by a 10th, so it could be anybody.
And we caught up with Dan as well earlier to find out his thoughts on this weekend.
Considering how Donington went for you last year, this year's Donington was a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. Donington 2017, we turned up with a brand new model Fireblade that we didn't have a lot of testing on and wasn't performing or even feeling like we wanted to. So yeah, to switch the clocks forward, time forward another year, 2018, turned up with the model Fireblade that we've had a year's use of, and we actually got going quite well on the end of 2017. So we started off in quite a good place really, but as everyone's probably said, the conditions were difficult, and my main target all weekend was to stay out of trouble and not make any stupid errors really. So to have come away with a good handful of points was a real strong bonus.
Whereabouts is the Fireblade at now? I know you had a lot of trouble with it last year, but you won on it at Alton Park and Silverstone and on the podium at Donington. Have we got a package that can fight for the championship?
Yeah, more so, definitely. I think we've certainly got something now that's more consistent and it feels, as it should do. It's in evolution. There's new parts coming all the time to try and push it forward still further. For example, I'm only one race into a new chassis that you guys have even commented on over the winter. So we're still trying to improve it round by round. But in general, the feeling of the bike is normal again now, and I'm able to sort of push, as I want to do now.
Here at the Brands Indy circuit, a circuit mixed results for you in the past. How are you feeling ahead of the weekend?
I'm really looking forward to it. It's really nice to be back to racing. For one, we all want the weather to buck up and get to different decent temperatures and sort of get back to what we know. But Brands Indy, I like the track. I love coming to Brands. Like you say, I've not had a great past at Brands Indy, a few crashes and injuries, but everyone has them. So no, I'm positive. After a good strong Donington, I'm really looking forward to getting out tomorrow and getting going with the bike and pushing myself and seeing what we can get down to really. I've got some targets for this weekend that I want to try and achieve and keep myself right into that top 6. So that's the plan. More podiums is what we need.
How do you expect this weekend to pan out? Who do you expect to be the most consistent, perhaps, in the races?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it, Laura? As we've said, the field this year is phenomenal. And when you bring them to a circuit like this, the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, 1.2 miles, lap record 45 seconds, it's close. So predicting who's going to come out on top is really, really hard. Mossy will have a good weekend. Ellison should have a good weekend. For at least one race win this week, I'm going to go for Bradley Rae because I think he's riding a bit of a wave. He's really confident and they've tested it.
Yeah, for me, it's all going to come down to qualifying as it always does around here. So for the first race, at least, look at people that are predominantly up there when qualifying comes around. So last year, Mossy, he was really quick. Ellison round here can never count out Haslam and Shaky. So yeah, it's all to play for. I can't wait to get going.
And the thing is, qualifying here is so crucial, isn't it? Given the lap times, how close everybody is, and how far one row's difference makes. We've seen that here in the past as well.
I think the most crucial thing is this place has only got 6 corners, so that's only really and roughly 6 passing places, and it's probably not even 6 if you think about it. We've got quite a few into Paddock Hill, into Druids, into Graham Hill's a little bit sketchy, and then again into Surtees is again a little bit sketchy. But getting past someone around clearways is really, really difficult. Yeah. So yeah, you need to get quite far up the grid, because if you're quite far back, like Josh Brooks was at Donington Park, starting the races 13th, it just ain't going to happen.
There you go. It's a battle of the brave when it comes to Brands Hatch Indy.